Being on the beach has always been a great time of fun. Swimming in the lake, building sandcastles, and all kinds of things you can do at the beach. And especially when I was growing up, me and my family often went to the local beach just have a good time. But only one time creeped me out so badly. And it not only creeped me out, but it was disturbing. It happened only a year ago when I was 17 years old. I'm currently 18 right now. But this not only affected me alone, it also affected three of my friends. My name is Michaela, and me and my friends Charlotte, Claire, and Miranda, we wanted to do something for this particular summer vacation. We had only 1 year left of high school, and we wanted to go somewhere else for this summer. We wanted to go to the Ozarks, which has a very popularity for these beaches and all that. But we all had the same problem. Our parents would even allow us to go ourselves. Even despite that all of us had have a driver license and even had on each car, but they wouldn't even still even let us go. And if we did go there as in secret and they find out that we actually had been there, we more likely would have been grounded for weeks or perhaps even the rest of the year. And it would not have been, as most people say, worth the risk. But I really wanted to go to the Ozarks. Hearing stories of people actually been there and hearing stories of how beautiful the beaches are, how great the places are. But I couldn't go because my parents would even let me. So Charlotte, Claire, and Miranda asked me if it was possible for even to have one other person with us. Someone older that were more responsible. I was like, well, who would even be willing to go with 4 teenage girls to the Ozarks? They all actually had only one answer. Eric. Eric is my 21-year-old brother. And I was like, well, he and I are really close, but I wasn't sure if he was willing to do so. I didn't even know if he had any plans for the summer himself. But Miranda suggested I talk to him. So I did. And surprising enough, he actually was agreed to go with us as protection and also more as a responsible adult. But there was only one other small problem that we had to issue it. The parents. Our parents and my friend's parents. We had to convince them if it was okay if my brother took us. I told my parents about this idea, and at first my parents was a little bit hesitated, but Eric actually has been quite responsible. I mean, he has a very well-paid job, and he has his own car, and he has actually been showing a lot of responsibility because sometimes when they were at work, he was the one that actually looked after me for some time. And if that wasn't alone to show them that he was responsible enough, I don't know what else would have to require to convince them. But that alone convinced them. And I suggest my mom to call my parents, my friend's parents, to convince them. And it didn't take long for my mom to actually convince each of my friends' parents to let them go. So we did. And we were actually so excited to do this. First of all, this was not only our first time to go to the Ozarks, but it was also the first time as a group traveling together. If we had been 18 or even 20 years old or like that, we would more likely would have let go of ourselves. But I'm actually still happy that my brother actually was willing to go with us, because he had a huge part in this story. And you may understand what much later on though. But we didn't know exactly whose car to take. But luckily for Eric, he actually had a smaller, or well, a decent sized van type of car. So it was like 8 seats in it, and we took it. We packed our car full with some clothes and beach tools and that chairs and all that we can actually been using, and then we took off. We drove for quite a while though, but on the way there we talked about kinds of things we were going to do. But there was only one other problem, like one of the things that some people were like, where were you going to stay? Like, well, before when our parents actually had allowed us to go, Eric and I were looking around for any available hotel in the near the Ozarks, and we actually found one well decent and had good ratings. So we actually managed to take at least 3 rooms. Me, Claire shared one room, Charlotte and Miranda took one room, and Eric took his own. Because, well, I mean, I understand that he didn't want to share a same room with some other girls, just more because they want more privacy. So, it was just a great time though. We talked about what we wanted to do at the beach, of course, except for swimming, sunbathing, and all that kinds of things. But I know at least one thing that Eric wanted to do. He wanted to travel around the town, just maybe to visit some of the bars and or just have a good time himself. He wasn't actually in college though, so he actually were just wanted to experience the Ozark himself. But when we arrived, we were stunned to see how the beautiful town it was, and the beauty of all of the hotel. It was actually decent size big enough, and we were amazed at those to see how many people actually were there. So we walked up to the receptionist, and we took the keys and went to the rooms. And for the first and half an hour, we actually stayed in our hotel rooms to relax and before going to the beach. We arrived in the early noon, actually around 12 in the afternoon or something like that, or 1 p.m. ish, I believe. We actually had a great time. So we all decided to go to the beach, but Eric, he decided to stay behind at the hotel because he wanted to take a nap. So, and I don't blame him on that. I mean, he was the one who drove us all their way, so yeah, I don't. So he really deserved that. But nothing actually happened to us the first day. We were actually going to stay for a whole week for once. And our parents, or well, my parents and my friend's parents um, actually were together to be able to pay so that we could stay for a whole week. Otherwise, we would just stay for the weekend. But we were just grateful they managed to pull that off so that we could stay for a whole week. So we went to the beach. We had a good time. We swam a lot, sunbathing, and we actually even played beach ball with some other teenagers there, or even some just have a good time. When we went back to the hotel, Eric was awake, of course. So we were debating if we should order room service or if we would go out to eat. Eric suggested that we actually go out to eat for this time at least. So we agreed. We got dressed and we actually find this well decent seafood restaurant in town. I know to tell you, it was amazing. I even liked seafood before this, but it was incredible. I wish I could have been going there every single time, but a slight problem. It was a little bit so far away, so if I had to go there for just to eat one time a day, that would my parents would not allow me. So, anyways, we actually had a great time. All things didn't start until like the second day on our vacation time. But there was only me and Miranda alone because the others they wanted to do some sightseeing in town. And Eric, well, at least he was at the hotel at first, but me and Miranda, we were just going to the beach and we just have a good time. While Miranda was in the lake swimming around, I was alone on the beach sunbathing when this older guy walked up to me and asked how a day has been. And at first, he was a decent, good-looking guy, but he was actually much older than me, and even older than my brother with a few years. He told me his name was Tony, and that he's actually a local, and that he is 24, now 25 though. And he asked if he could sit down, so that, well, he didn't seem to be any weird guy, but any ways at the first, so I said yes. And my parents had always taught me to being polite and always being accepting people despite if they were creepy or not. And we actually have a decent conversation. When he asked me who I was there at the beach, since he noticed that I wasn't local when I mentioned that, I told him that I was there with my friends, Charlotte, Claire, and Miranda. And then he asked me which hotel we were staying at. Well, this was probably the red flag, which I immediately recognized, and I told him that I wasn't actually certain if I should mention it, but he suggested that he then mentioned one hotel, and it was only like two hotels in town, and the one he mentioned was the exact one that we were staying at. But I did say I didn't confirm if there was that one or not. So at least I had some advantage on if he would try something. But during our conversation, Miranda showed up and she was surprised that I was talking to an older guy, and he asked if this was one of my friends. I confirmed it was. And even Miranda at first was a little bit surprised, but she actually joined in the conversation and we actually did have a good time. But in the end, Miranda wanted to go to buy an ice cream or a drink, I believe it was. I believe it was a drink. So it was just me and Tony, and then he asked me if I wanted to maybe go out with him that night as a date. I was flattered, but I told him that I'm only 17 and he's 24 years old. And I don't know if that's gonna stay since I only here for only time for about a week. But he didn't say much about it since he was very insistent that I should go out with him. But I told him once again, no thanks, but I'm not interested. And he was seems to be a little bit disappointed but also a bit angry that I said no. Because why not, he asked. I mean, I'm a decent good looking guy and I can always show you around to some new places. Even though I was actually wanted to see more of the town, but I wouldn't go alone with a complete stranger. I mean, my parents, thank for them, had taught me about the stranger danger warnings. Even though I was like almost 18, I still followed that rules quite good enough. But Miranda showed up, and then Tony said, "Well, if you really wanted to do that, so I'll let you know where I'm staying at." And he mentioned this small bar type of restaurant nearby if I wanted to go, if I was still interested, if I changed my mind. After he left, I told Miranda what happened. She was a little bit creeped out and said, "That's very persistent how he was actually," and I agreed. But I put in a lot more attention to that, and we actually enjoyed. Later, Claire and Charlotte actually joined us at the beach, and we had a great time. But not long after that day arrived, who else showed up? Tony. Once again, he saw me with my friends. Well, I did mention before who was actually with the beach, except for one person, Eric. I never actually brought up the topic that my brother was even there, because now with my friends, I felt more comfortable and more safe, because at least I know that Charlotte and Claire, well, let's say they were not hesitating to say no to a guy who was very persistent. I had already informed them when I saw Tony walking up to us, and they were at least informed what happened. But when he walked up to us and asked if I had considered if I wanted to go out with him. But then, before I could even say anything, Charlotte said like, "Dude, she's not interested in you. So if you wanted to have keep asking, so I had to beg to please ask you to leave us alone. Please." That shocked him. And then Claire also interfered as like, "She would never even want to be with you. Dude, you're much older than her. You should probably go with a girl that is your age," she said most angrily. That shocked him more, and he reacted most with shock, but then he said more as angry tone, "As I can choose and that I want to go. She should go out with me. I mean, I'm a decent, good-looking guy. I know I can pay for her things. I can show her the good times in here. Show her around." But Miranda was now looking at me, and I was felt scared. It's like, "Leave us alone, please." And then we just started to pick up our things and just to leave. But as we were about to try to walk away, He grabbed my arm and said, "Please, give me a chance." And then I slapped him in the face and was like, "Leave me alone, you creep." And that was the first time I actually called him that. He was not happy, and he slapped me in the face back, and I fell back on my butt. And my friend stood in front of me and said, "Dude, you should leave right now, or we'll be called for help." "Huh, does anyone want to help you guys?" he said angrily and just walked off. Well, we were talking about this as he was no longer around us. We discussing if we should telling this to Eric. But I said no. I don't think we ever had to be in work to see him around anymore. And I am so wrong in that, because the very next day, when I was alone at the beach, well, for at least for a moment though, who else showed up at the beach just pretending to casually walking up? And it was Tony. And I decided myself, not again. So luckily I only had brought myself just a towel and sunscreen like that. So I immediately packed my things, and as I was about to walk, he started to follow after me and yelling, "Please, hello, stop, give me a chance." But I ignored him. But then he started screaming, "Hey, I'm talking to you." As a polite to be talking back, I turned around and said, "Leave me alone, Tony. I didn't want to be around with you. You're creepy." And I tried to speed walk. And he followed after me. And I was near the hotel, and he grabbed my shoulder and then grabbed my arm and tried to pull me away from the place. "You should have spent time with me for once. I can really show you a good time around here." At the same moment, Charlotte and Miranda walked out. They were not actually going to the beach, but they just wanted to go around in town for some sightseeing. But they saw me and Tony behind me in a grab arm on my arm. And they're like, "Dude, let her go!" And they ran up to me, and he didn't leave. He actually told them, "Mind your own business. Me and my little date here are going to have some good time." I was like, "Date?" And I turned around and slapped him right in the face, and that made him lose the grip of my arm, and he was first really screaming. We told him, "If you don't leave me alone, I will tell the police on you." But he laughed and said, "The police will never bother me. They will never even find me." He screamed almost into like a sing tone. But as that happened, Claire walked out with who else? Eric, my brother. And Claire saw this happening and was like, at least now she briefly informed him what's been happening. She told him like, "This guy had been harassing your sisters for the past few days and he won't leave her alone." That was all required took for him to go into Big Brother protected mode. He walked up to me casually and stood next to me, and Eric just said, "Dude, can you not see that these girls are not happy you're around?" "And who are you to say that?" he said, almost like to be macho. "I am her big brother." That somehow didn't affect him much at first. "Ha, as I believe that." But then he said, "I am her big brother. If you really don't want to leave," then he pulled out his phone and said, "If you don't leave, I will call the police on you." That made him angry. He said, "Well, who were even there?" Then he somehow, before even my brother could react, he grabbed his phone and threw it on the ground and stamped on it. It's like, "Now you can't call for anyone." And then Tony freaked out more because Claire was standing near the entrance to the hotel, having her phone, was like, "I'm calling for them right now." And she did actually. But that didn't stop him. Because before they even could arrive, well, he just said, "Keep your eyes open." Then he took off. We made a report to police and informed them that this guy just made some descriptions. and they would inform us if they found him. And for the rest of the week, we didn't see him, luckily though, but I was always on the high alert every single time. But Eric, he made like a mission to stay by my side almost every single time we were out. There was something like the last day where we were supposed to be at the beach. It was just me and Miranda. Miranda was just wanted to use the restroom, so I was alone at the beach, and Eric told us that he would be there only like 5 to 10 minutes later after we arrived. He was just to do something back at the hotel first. So we were waiting for him. And while I was alone, I heard someone walking and thought maybe first it was Miranda. And when I asked if her that was quick, quick what? Then I realized it wasn't Miranda or Eric. I slowly turned around and saw Tony. Tony was now looking almost very much angry at me. But I told him, "Leave me alone, Tony. I don't want to be even near you. I'm not interested in you whatsoever." Luckily, there was a lot of people around us, so for some reason he never tried. But the only thing he did say, "Fine, I will find some other girl to be around with then. You're just not interested. You're just an ugly, stupid, blonde girl." And then he just turned around and I was like, "Good luck, because the police are looking for you already," I told him. And he was like, "As if they would ever find me." And, well, they actually kind of did, because around the time when we were leaving the next day, an officer walked up to us and informed us they actually found Tony. He was starting harassing another tourist girl around the same age as me, around the same thing as he did to me and my friends. But luckily though, her parents was not that far away from her, so the father grabbed the guy and held him until the police arrived and did arrest him. And I was glad for that. Because despite this was supposed to be mine and my friend's best summer vacation at Ozarks, well, let's say it was a good time for at least in the early times on the early that week. But the rest of the time I was all on high alert. I could not even imagine what it was like. And even after we came back home, we told my parents and my friends told theirs, but they also told that Eric has always been protective. He did protect me and my friends, and they were at least happy. But when I said if we were to go somewhere else again, they would not hesitate to bring Eric as their personal bodyguard. My parents was actually proud of how my brother actually acted. And even then. But we did discuss if we would go back to the Ozarks the next summer, this year after high school, to celebration it. But we decided may not to go back there, not because of that happened. It's unlikely that's going to happen a second time with another guy, but you never know. But me, my friends are decided may go to another lake nearby and rent a cabin or something, which we will make sure that Eric will be along with us. And just being, even though this may not be relevant, shortly after this, I took self-defense classes, so did as my friends. And so if I would have encountered Tony or any guys like him ever again, they will be in for a surprise. That's for sure of it. I cannot allow it to happen again. And if I would have to see anyone like that happen to, if it was among friends or a complete stranger, I will be there to defend her or him from a creep. Because this is not should have been allowed to happen to other people. And I know for at least one thing, Tony ended up in jail for at least a few years for this harassment and stalking apparently, because it turned out I was not the only one and that girl that he did afterwards. During the summer, he did the same thing to at least a half a dozen of girls. They were around from 18 to 20s. Me and the other girl, but we were the one that was 17. Tony, I know for certain that we will never even meet again, but if we did, you way you may best to stay away from me now because I am well trained and I can kick your butt. So stay away.